if you live in Illinois, like I do, and you've probably heard some version of this question, right? Why can't the state of Illinois just cut the state-funded pensions? Because Illinois has one of the most serious public pension problems in the country. That was kind of tough. But anyway, so the numbers here are enormous. They're huge because the cost of the pensions affects the state budget, local government, school funding, property taxes, and then just public services in general. So it's understandable why so many people in the state of Illinois are upset and ask the question. But from a civics standpoint, the answer starts with the Illinois Constitution. Illinois has something in its Constitution called the Pension Protection Clause, and it says that membership in a public pension or retirement system is an enforceable contractual relationship, and the benefits of that relationship cannot be diminished or impaired. So, in plain English, once a public employee enters one of those pension systems, the state cannot later reduce the promised benefits for that person. Now, that doesn't mean Illinois has no pension problem. It means that the state cannot solve the problem by simply breaking a constitutional promise. And this all really came to a head back in 2013 when Illinois passed a major pension reform law. And this law tried to reduce costs by changing benefits for workers who had already paid into the system. And supporters argued that the state's financial crisis was serious enough to justify those changes. But in 2015, the Illinois Supreme Court struck the law down, said it was in violation of the state constitution. The court said that the Pension Protection Clause means what it says. Benefits cannot be diminished or impaired. And the state's financial problems do not give the legislature the power to ignore the state constitution. And so that's really, the key civics lesson here. A constitutional limit is not only a limit when it's convenient. It matters most when the government is under pressure. Now, this doesn't mean that pensions can never be changed at all. Illinois has already created different rules for newer employees called Tier 2, and the state can then change benefits for future workers. And so that means it can also change funding schedules, it can increase contributions, it can negotiate certain changes, and it can look at revenue and spending and consolidation and investment policy and long-term funding reforms. But what it generally cannot do is take someone who already earned constitutional pension protection and simply say, yeah, we changed our mind. That's why this issue has become so difficult. On one side, taxpayers have a real legitimate concern. I mean, I'm a public school teacher at a high school. I teach civics and government, and I've been paying into the TRS system. I'm going into my 30th year of teaching. And so pension debt really has a long-lasting effect on folks who are outside the state system, who may not necessarily understand how it actually works, and that we can't just make these changes now. Because pension debt affects the budget, the state budget, of course, and it can crowd out other public necessities. But on the other side, public employees do have a legitimate claim. Many people accepted jobs, salaries, and career paths with pensions as part of the promised compensation. I know when I started teaching back in the 1900s, the thing I often heard was teachers would say, you know what, we'll accept the smaller pay on the front end of our career with the promise of the pension that we would receive on the back end of our career as we move into the world of retirement. So the issue comes about as it's not as simple as taxpayers versus workers. It's also about what happens when government makes long-term promises and then fails to fund them properly. Illinois did not get into this problem overnight because for decades, lawmakers underfunded the pension systems. They delayed hard choices. They pushed costs into the future. They borrowed from the pension system and didn't pay it back appropriately. And now it's been kicked down the road and the future is here. So, why can't Illinois just cut pensions? Because the Illinois Constitution protects the pensions. And because we live in a constitutional system, government cannot solve every problem, by walking away from its own promises. So the real civics question is not whether Illinois has a pension problem. It really does. But the real question is how a state fixes serious financial problems while still following its own constitution. We have to remember, constitution is a word that means a plan of government. And so the constitution for the state, just as much as the federal constitution, is the framework, the blueprint by which the government is supposed to function. And so understanding that, we just can't cut the pensions because it violates the plan that the government has established through its constitution. So anyway, that was one of the civics questions that I thought was worth asking today. Thanks for taking the time.